What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to Gig Nation. Jonathan here. Today we're going to be looking at an interesting topic that I wanted to share a little bit more on because yesterday I put out a video about the top 4 moving apps out there, and I actually have spent quite a bit of time working for one of them. So today I want to show you guys exactly how much I made. And we're going to take a look at my earnings through Dolly from 2017 through 2018. But before I hop into those, I just want to point out there that I'm not favoring Dolly. I just happened to start working for Dolly because they were popular here in Seattle. They had originally been located in Chicago, and then they moved their main office over to Seattle. So it was kind of a big name over here, but I don't necessarily recommend them over other services. If Lug or GoShare is in your area, they might even be better than Dolly. So definitely check those out too, but I don't personally have experience working with them and moving with them. So I'm going to show you guys what I made through Dolly. I'm going to break it down, everything from how much I earned, how much I was tipped, how much time it took me, and how far I traveled during these moves. And I'm going to be working really hard to get all of these moving companies up on gigsharks.com in the next few days. So if you're looking for a moving gig, you think this is a good fit for you, maybe you have a truck, maybe you don't, maybe you just like helping move stuff and you want to earn a little bit more money doing it, then make sure to check out gigsharks.com and you'll be able to find those in your area within the week. So as I mentioned, I worked with Dolly as a hands, and as you can see in this video, I'm not in a truck. I don't have a truck. I've never owned a truck. I actually have a Mazda 3, it's a 2005, and it does not qualify to move stuff in my vehicle. So I worked as a hands on the platform. Now they advertise that hands make $15 an hour and that helpers, people with trucks, earn $30 an hour. But my earnings were quite a bit different than that. I found that I was averaging a bit more, not even having a truck. And from a lot of people that I talked to, kind of breaking down their earnings, they were making a lot more than $30 an hour with a truck. So a lot of comparable companies out there like Lug actually advertise that you can make up to $2,500 a week moving on their apps. And other apps like TaskRabbit have sections in them where you can put out a skill for moving if you have a truck and set your own rates. People do really well on this platform, but it kind of flies under the radar because you have to pay for that background check up front and you have to do some work to get reviews. You can't necessarily set high rates right away. You got to put in the time, get those positive reviews on your profile, and then you can start earning quite a bit on TaskRabbit. I've heard of some people really crushing it, moving it on that platform, but we're going to take a look at what I earned with Dolly today. So the breakdown was very simple on these different gigs. Every time I did a move and I was paired with someone that had a truck, they were the helper, I was the hands. They make a 60% cut of the earnings and I took a 40% cut of the earnings. But a lot of these different moves, a lot of these gigs that were listed actually didn't require any distance traveled. They were people who had already had a U-Haul at their house with a bunch of stuff in it, and I had to unload it, bring it into the house, or they were people about to move. They had rented a U-Haul for themselves, and I would clear out the house, put it in the U-Haul, and then they'd go ahead and take it down themselves. So there was a lot of room to work, a lot of room to play if I was a hands. And if I was just doing one of these gigs without a helper and there were 2 hands, let's say, then we were splitting that 50-50. So it could actually be pretty advantageous even if you don't have a truck. And if you do have a truck, well, the earnings are actually kind of scalable depending on what type of truck you have. Because if you're a helper on the app, you get to kind of choose different tasks that you think you can do. And some of them might not be enough for your truck to handle. So if you have a bigger truck, you can get those runs done in less trips, and that can end up making you more money per hour. Now, if you have a box truck, you can actually really crush it on these apps. So like the third move that I showed up to, I was paired with a helper. He was actually a real estate agent in Seattle, but he was just doing this part-time as a side hustle. He had a truck and he let me know that he was making up to $2,000 a week during the summer doing this. And he had talked to people that had box trucks and they were making even more than that. They were absolutely crushing it. And another cool fact about it is that a lot of these moves, people would kind of leave stuff behind, not want it. He would just take that stuff and flip it on Craigslist. So he was making some extra money if people had stuff they wanted to get rid of as well. Okay, so let's start to take a look at my actual earnings over this time period. Now, I was doing this part-time. This wasn't a full-time gig for me. Part of the time I actually had a full-time job, and the other part I kind of used it in tandem with other side hustles and working on other projects myself. So you'll see that I usually have a few of these per week. Some weeks were busier than others, and my average earnings are looking closer to $20 to $30 an hour, and sometimes more on a few of these gigs that I've picked up. I definitely had a few where I was making $50 or $60 an hour, and as you can see, the time really varies. I'm getting a bunch of different time frames here, but oftentimes the distance traveled isn't that far. It's only just a few miles in between point A and point B. And the tips were really good on these moves. People are really happy when you help them move huge things that they're worried they couldn't lift. Maybe they don't want to hurt their backs. It's stuff that people really are dependent on someone else to help them do. So I noticed a lot of tips that were upwards of 10, 20, even $30. Obviously, you do get customers in there that aren't going to tip that well, maybe only $4 or $5, but a lot of them are pretty good tippers. And there's a few other factors that you really have to look out for when you're doing these dollies. So if you pick up a dolly, you're scheduled to do it, and you wait too long to relist that dolly, there is a fee, a $5 fee for that late relist, which can definitely hit you. And also, it kind of goes the other way with the customer. If you pick up a dolly and you schedule it, you start heading towards it, it's like up till 45 minutes before it starts, and if that person decides to cancel it, you will get a small cancellation fee for your time. So that kind of works both ways on canceling. And there's also something called an adjustment fee. It's in a couple of the dollies that I picked up. And so basically how their system works is it's priced out by, the number of items that are moved, the size of those items, and a few other factors. A big one is stairs. If you're moving items upstairs, this can be really taxing. This can be really hard work, and it costs them extra. So sometimes customers like to get sneaky. They've maybe used Dolly a few times. They'll stop marking stairs, or they'll classify large items as small items. And so on Dolly, you're an independent contractor. It's your job to, if you see something that doesn't look right, to bring it up to the customer. Just be like, hey, this is a large item. You had it marked as a medium item or a small item. I'm going to need to make an adjustment here. And you call into support, get that item adjusted, and make sure that you're paid out the fair price for that dolly. It's not something that happens a whole lot, but something that you definitely have to look out for. And so a few things that I noticed while I was working on the Dolly app, while I was doing some moving, is that there are definitely some factors that can increase your earnings. And one of those is simply time of the year. But as you can see with my earnings, I'm getting consistent dollies year round, but I noticed that there was a much heavier flow of these dollies coming through in the spring and the summer. And here's why. People are moving from rentals year round. It's always a thing, but renters tend to not own as many items. Usually they just have one room where they have their stuff, a bed, maybe a desk, maybe a couple of other things like a wardrobe, but it's not usually a huge move in most cases. Now, the dollies that get really crazy, the people that need a ton of help moving, are those people that are moving houses. People that buy new houses have a ton of stuff that needs to be moved. And these are the big dollies. This is when Dolly really picks up. And if you're familiar with the real estate market tends to heat up in the spring and then get really hot in the summer. So you have a ton of people buying new houses, doing these big moves where they have just a ton of stuff that needs to be moved. And so this is really one of the hot times of the year to be on Dolly and make even more money on this platform. And you can also do better just by choosing your dollies well, looking for dollies where people have fewer items that need to be moved, maybe just a couple of things without stairs, stuff that that's going to go pretty quick, but ends up having a pretty good payout. This is where you make a lot of your money, and a lot of those easy payouts you see on my listed dollies, where I'm really only working an hour, less than an hour, and making like $60 or more. That's where a lot of those came through. It's also kind of tough to tell how much time I spent on all of these just based on the recorded time of the dolly. And that's because Dolly has a policy where they want you to start the dolly before you actually leave for it or while you're on the way. They say 15 minutes before. Sometimes you do it even before that. And this kind of allows you to, if someone cancels on you, say that you already started the dolly, make sure that you get that cancellation fee. So I have a few of these dollies on here that actually look like they were longer than they were, but that kind of balances out because I have some other ones where I maybe forgot to start the dolly as early as I should have, so they should have been marked as a little bit longer time frames in there. But overall, I feel that this is a very good way to earn some really good money. It definitely is one of the highest paying types of gigs in the gig economy. Now, it does require, if you want to make that really good money, that you have a truck or a box truck. If you happen to have one of these and you're not using a moving app, it could be a good place to go. And it also does require that you put in some hard work. It's not as easy as just picking up food or driving people around. You do have to be in good physical shape and able to lift stuff. But if that's something that you like doing and you are in good shape, then Dolly, GoShare, Lug, any one of these apps could be a really good moving app. Even going on TaskRabbit and trying to list yourself there, maybe even try and tackle. I haven't heard of too many people doing moving on that platform, but I think that those are really good options if you're serious about it, because you get to set your own rates, which means you have more control, and more control is always good in the gig economy. If you enjoyed this video, make sure to hit that like button and subscribe to the channel for all of the latest gig economy news. Once again, make sure to check out gigsharks.com for all of the best gigs in your city. And if you haven't already checked out the Facebook group, make sure to check that out, Facebook @GigNation. I'll leave a link to that down below with the other links.